so this right here is Indonesia's Black Magic Island.
An island with a history of demons and sorcery, and surrounded by an angry ocean that can turn in a second. But outside of local legend, this island, known as Nusa Penida, is famous for something else entirely. Some of the most pristine and scientifically important reefs in the entire world. This is where I learnt to dive, and where I dropped some of my first remote cameras in search of a species new to science. However, literally no one knows what lives in the deep, because until now, nobody's been stupid enough to try and send a camera down to find out. But I'm that stupid.
Yeah, this is not good. Okay. How we this up so hard?
It turns out though, the effort was worth it, because we managed to record perhaps the first ever footage of at least 2 large deep water species swimming around in the wild. Oh, and a whole host of other things. But it definitely wasn't easy.
Ace Pro 2 is rolling. Good luck.
See you down there.
Here goes nothing. 3, 2, 1, and down she goes.
Unlike in the shallows, at 170 meters or around 600 feet, the ocean floor appears barren. Here, strong currents prevent sessile life from getting a foothold, but despite this, predators still thrive. This shark is a species of spur dog or dogfish, and not only was it not scared of the lights on our rig, it was hungry. Unlike big laminid sharks like great whites, the spur dog's teeth aren't really designed for slicing. Their feeding style is more grab and twist. Now, we know this is a spur dog because of the presence of a spine in front of each dorsal fin. Not only are these spines incredibly sharp, but they're also venomous, making them a tough swallow for predators, which is mostly larger sharks. That being said, there's around 34 species in the Squalus genus, and many look incredibly similar, so identifying the exact species is pretty difficult. In fact, I had to call in a couple of friendly experts for this one, and here's what stood out. This shark has a slender body, short snout, very tall erect dorsal fins with pale tips and long dorsal spines, and a caudal or tail fin with a broad white margin and no dark patches. Taking this into consideration, this is almost certainly Squalus altipinis, the western high-fin spur dog. What makes this sighting particularly interesting though, is records from Indonesia are non-existent, and more importantly, after scouring the internet and consulting with some experts, it's likely that this is the first ever footage of this species alive in the wild. And these small spur dogs were everywhere, nearly 200 meters below the surface.
Oh, and by the way, guys, I've just uploaded the first clips from Nusa Penida drops at night to Patreon, so if you want to see that, click the QR code that's down here somewhere, and let's just say that the spur dogs are definitely not the biggest thing that lives down there.
Now, one thing that was reassuring on these drops is that at these depths, the sharks don't appear to be afraid of the lights at all. In the shallows, light signals danger or disturbance, and species that spend time near the surface rarely come close to my camera systems. In the depths, where everything lives its life in near total darkness, light appears to be something worth investigating though. Their enormous eyes suck in so much of it that when illuminated, they likely just see a big glowing object rather than details that might trigger caution. They of course rely more heavily on their smell though, as evidenced by these spur dogs spending a lot of time scanning the sand in search of the source of the scent. Unfortunately, their vision isn't good enough though to tell them when to put the brakes on. Whilst the sand was alive with spur dogs, it's a little difficult to tell exactly how many were down there. It's sometimes possible to distinguish between individuals using both natural and unfortunate indicators. This shark, for example, is a male, as evidenced by the presence of claspers in between its pelvic fins. Claspers are the male shark's reproductive organs. This different individual has a damaged jaw, perhaps the result of escaping a fisherman's hook, whilst this one appears to have endured a significant injury to the tip of its snout. Luckily, sharks are some of the most resilient creatures on the planet, with very strong immune systems and tough, denticule-covered infection-resistant skin. It's likely this pair will continue to thrive. But whilst most of these sharks look the same, one stood out from the crowd. This is not a spur dog. In fact, this shark doesn't even belong to the same family. It's actually a hound shark, but what species, I'm not entirely sure. We needed it to come closer, but unlike the spur dogs, it kept its distance, gracefully traversing the sand. However, graceful is not a word I would use to describe what was going on back on the boat, as we tried bringing the camera back up to the surface.
Oh, this is so hard. Why do we do this? Current's got so much worse. 50 meters to go.
Woo!
That was way harder than I thought. Oh, that was so bad, but at least the squid is gone.
Despite getting off to such a great start, the next few drops were a real challenge. For example, even after some good planning, or so I thought, the next drop site was a little deeper than we thought.
Yeah, this is not good. How have we f***ed this up so hard? We're still rolling. Man, that was stressful. We thought we were at 100 meters. We hit 200 meters of rope and still hadn't hit the bottom. So we dragged it back in and dropped it a bit shallower. Now it's at like 120, just out there.
But despite eventually finding the slope, strong currents quickly pulled our markers under the surface and spooled our line. However, the 20 minutes or so of footage we managed to record on this drop did give us a little more insight into what lives a little shallower underneath Black Magic Island. For other than the soft corals clinging to the sand and a single almaco jack that patrolled in the distance, on this drop we recorded pretty much nothing. We needed a new plan, and new equipment, and a good night's sleep. Hopefully one filled with dreams of achieving my mission of recording a deep-sea species new to science.
Okay, so it is day 2, and thankfully we seem to have much better conditions today. So not too much sun, not too much current, as evidenced by all the trash, unfortunately, that's down there. And we've also got a new plan for today. We've got this big boy, so hopefully we won't lose the rig because the SMB won't get pulled under. Okay, team.
Yeah.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Do that.
Yeah, lights on. And we are off. 1, 2, 3. Clip.
Ada yang kebiri gitu ya, Pak. Lagi.
Okay, well so far it's not looking too good because the buoy went straight down and now the SMB is also about to go down, but yeah, oh dear. Oh dear. And now we wait.
We'd moved spots from the day before. This area is actually where the latest great white was seen, and also much closer to the shallower area I've dropped many cameras on before. For obvious reasons, I was hopeful that this deeper spot would also attract large animals, although the action was slow, and the most common visitors to the rig were pretty small. These jobfish approached hesitantly, and sand perch hovered over the sand, curious but a little disinterested. In fact, on this drop, the most action came from this small pink whip coral, one of only a few groups of sessile inverts that can hold their position in these currents. Despite the rig weighing 20 kilograms, the currents here are unforgiving, and for most of this drop, we filmed, well, this. I knew there were creatures waiting to be discovered in the deep waters around this island. We just needed to persist and try and find out where they patrol. For the second drop of the day, we targeted a shallow area at around 400 feet, and unlike the first drop, the abundance and diversity of fish species was clearly a lot higher. Jobfish and sand perch were the most interested species, although this time they approached as a team. Whilst, as expected, the bottom-dwelling sand perch stayed, well, on the bottom, the jobfish were more active, pulling on the squid's tentacles as if slurping up a string of spaghetti. Overhead, large schools of fusiliers were schooled up in the current, occasionally coming close enough to be illuminated by the lights. The rig was also visited by perhaps the fastest fish in the ocean. I'm assuming this is another almaco jack, but to be honest, I think I need a higher frame rate to get a clear ID on that individual. Which reminds me, cameras. How good is this footage?
So this here is the camera that we've been using to capture this deep sea action. This is Insta360's Ace Pro 2. Now, if you're a scuba diver or you film anything underwater, this camera is really good for a whole host of reasons. Firstly, you can record up to 3 hours of continuous footage, depending obviously on what mode you're in. We shoot about 2 hours, 15 minutes of 4K 30 FPS footage on their specialist endurance mode. It's also incredibly rugged, so as you can probably imagine, these cameras get chucked around a bit on the boats, and I've got absolutely no doubts that they will stay in really good condition. It's also the first action camera on the market with a dual AI chip, so processing, performance and noise reduction are insanely good. Oh, and one final point on charging. So not only does it have ridiculously good battery life, but you can fully charge the battery in just 47 minutes, and it does reverse charging. So if your phone dies on the boat, simply plug it into this thing.
For a lot of diving and underwater work, low light performance is paramount, and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 is definitely a market leader, as evidenced by the fact that even at 170 meters, where there is basically zero visible light penetration, it's still able to capture world-class footage. Its shallow water performance, aided by its unique AI-driven underwater mode, is also second to none. I mean, look at that. Guys, if like the spur dogs on drop 1, you want to check out the Ace Pro 2 or any of Insta360's other products and help support these deep sea expeditions, scan the QR code up on the screen now or click the link in the description for more information. Despite some activity, this spot was pretty lifeless, and I must admit, as we struggled to pull the rig up to the boat for the 4th time, I was starting to think we'd just been lucky on the first drop and would struggle to find the sharks again. But we still had one more day, and it turns out it was going to be a very good and very sharky day. There's one creature at the bottom of this island that I guarantee you've never seen before.
Okay, day 3, camera's about to go down. Conditions look pretty good, so fingers crossed. So tiring.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we're on the spot.
Ready or not?
Yes, ready. Okay, down. Right, stay up. Stay up. Boom, 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 boom. And now we wait. Fingers crossed for some sharks.
This was our last chance to get the footage we'd set out to capture and find out what really lives down here. Unlike the first drop we did in this series, at first things were a little slow. If you zoom in a little, there's always something to spot. Down here, low profile and good grip are key. So too is having a good escape plan or good armour, like these deep water urchins that, unlike their shallower water cousins, feed on organic matter falling from the surface. In the deep, energy comes mostly from above, and scavengers have to move fast. Small fish also emerge from cover. I'm not entirely sure what this species is though. However, some of the most charismatic creatures that live down here are the squat lobsters, a group of very animated crustaceans that scavenge on the sand. By contracting their abdomens, they're able to jump on top of the bait cage with ease. The hooked tips of their walking legs, called dactyli, act like grappling hooks, helping them stay anchored in the current so they can feed in peace. Fast forward to the next drop, and you can see just how relentless these little critters are in their pursuit of food. Understandable though, given they have to make the most of it, for down here, the smell of an easy meal travels fast. Whilst the western high-fin spur dogs eventually found the bait, they seemed a little more hesitant, nudging the bait with their snouts, but not biting down. The bait wasn't the only thing they nudged though, as, like before, they seemed to spend more time tangled up inside the steel structure than anywhere else. You can hear how their denticle-covered skin sounds like sandpaper as it rubs up against the steel. However, one of the spur dogs did show off an interesting trick: the ability to sit motionless on the bottom. Not all sharks can do this, but those that can, like the dogfishes, are able to do so through a mechanism called buccal pumping, where they contract their jaw and cheek muscles to flush oxygenated water over their gills, even while stationary. Although, as you'll see on the final drop, it's not just small sharks that can do this. The lone hound shark that we first spotted on day 1 also reappeared, although, like before, kept its distance. If you've got an idea as to what this might be, let me know in the comments. Now, I'm not complaining of course, but I was starting to think that this spot was just covered in smaller spur dogs. Was there anything else to find down here? Bigger sharks, rays, or other large deep water species? Well, it turns out the answer is yes, definitely. But this drop was very different. The action was slow, but the creatures that showed themselves were incredibly special. Well, apart from this one, another almaco jack or longfin yellowtail. Like before, this individual was in a bit of a hurry. But other very large fish patrol the sand down at 170 meters. These two giants are a species of deep water jobfish or snapper. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the species, but these almost certainly belong to the Atellus genus. It's been suggested that they are Atellus radiosus, more commonly known as the pale ruby snapper, and they are absolutely enormous. However, the sharks soon returned, although this time they looked a little different. This is an incredibly special find, the Indonesian wobbegong. Unfortunately, this individual wasn't overly keen on having its picture taken, but it's long been theorised by scientists in the area that these wobbegongs aren't present in the shallows because they prefer the deeper, colder and quieter water. And now we have clear evidence. We recorded similar evidence over on mainland Bali, in a spot where, as far as I'm aware, wobbegongs have never been seen by divers in the shallows. It's possible that local scientists will publish this finding. But when we pulled this camera up, part of the squid that we'd fixed to the top of the cage was missing. And well, that clearly wasn't the work of the wobbegong. So what did eat it? Throughout this entire drop, a large flattened animal kept appearing, but it didn't look like anything I'd seen before. It's a ray, of course, and the head and snout looked like that of shallower water eagle rays, but this one was a flat brown purple colour, and very deep. But after some time, as its confidence grew, it eventually swam into the fray. This is Myleobatis hamlini, the purple eagle ray, a medium-sized eagle ray characterised by its purple tinge, of course. Like the spur dogs, this individual also seemed a little disorientated. Like the western hyphen spur dog sighting, this discovery is particularly exciting because it's likely that this is the first footage of this species alive in the wild, and boy, did we get some good shots. This individual is a female, given she has no claspers. You can also make out the ray's small dorsal fin as well as the venomous barbs that line her tail. Whilst the species feeds near the bottom, they're also capable of rapid bursts of speed as they disappear back off into the blackwater. For those of you that are new here, I'm dropping these cameras all over the globe in search of a species new to science. We've now recorded some of the first footage of at least 3 deep water species alive in the wild. Historically though, it seems the most interesting creatures appear at night, so logically, despite immense tiredness, swollen hands and a very stiff back, it seemed obvious that I owe it to you guys to drop a camera on this spot at night. Now, sometimes you have to wait a while for the big stuff to find the bait, but if you're lucky, you drop the camera on the perfect spot at the perfect time. And little did I know that the small sharks we recorded in the day are but a small snack for the predators that really dominate at the bottom of Black Magic Island. Guys, if you want to see what we recorded, the footage from the night drops is up on Patreon now. A massive thank you to those of you that are already supporting the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're in the mood for more ocean adventures, I'm 100% sure you will love this video.